Welcome back to the Lanterne Rouge Cycling Podcast for Stage 18 of the Tour de France, the most obvious breakaway stage we've had in this year's Tour, with the sprinters on their last legs, even if they weren't. 3,000 meters of elevation gain from Gap to Barcelonnette. Pretty warm day. We've got Category 3 climbs throughout the course, including, they're all about 10 minutes long, more or less. The longest one's the second last, Côte de Saint-Apollinaire, which is 7Ks, 5.5%, with some steeper sections in there. Descent, then a 3.5K, 5.3% little category 3 with a plateau on top before a steeper descent off that with some hairpins before like a false flat sort of nasty drag uphill to actually over 1,000 meters in Barcelonnette. So two half of the sprinters, every single rouleur breakaway artist has circled this in their diary. And do we have any news pre-stage, Benji? I don't think so.
Not really. We just had the same ideas of certain riders maybe still being ill, like, for example, Wellens. And we saw that early on in the stage while the breakaway formation was happening, that Wellens was not exactly having the best day. He was at the back of the peloton dropping together with the sprinters, and Wellens should not do that. If Wellens is in normal form, he's not dropping with the likes of Cavendish, even before Cavendish at the back of the peloton. But loads of people were trying to attack, and I feel like UAE was a bit less captivated with trying to maneuver themselves around the break formation, less active in closing down every single Visma rider, even though yesterday it was mainly Jorgensen that they were closing down. And I think we saw a few moves going up the road where it was more UAE not knowing who was in it that might have scared them a little, and then they closed it down. So like at a certain point, half the peloton was going off the front in the first, let's say, 40 kilometers. And Soler closes that down because he probably was unaware that there's no GC rider in there. You want to know who's in the breakaway when you let that breakaway go. Otherwise, you might end up having to chase it a long time during the stage. Then again, there's actually not too many riders that UAE themselves need to care about, right? Because if P8 goes in the breakaway, so place 8 in GC, maybe it's Derek G or 9th. If he goes in the breakaway, it's P8, P7, P6. Those teams will probably be the first to start chasing, right?
Yeah, in theory, I think UAE just were like, we're not letting a group of 45 go up the road. We don't.
Well, wasn't that far off in the end?
True, yeah, that was maybe half of. That was like the whole peloton just about. Maybe they were thinking like, you don't really know who's in it, and it's just annoying. So like if Landa goes in it, Visma aren't going to chase. UAE have to chase harder. Wellens was half dropped before Cavendish actually, and so. Yeah, I think it's fair enough for Soler to close that down. Eventually, the break does actually form quote unquote easily compared to other stages. We do have a 4K 6.5% climb to aid in that process at the start, so that's why this really was a breakaway stage. And a big one does go with 36 riders. I'll do quick fire. Van Aert, and it was the stage favorite, maybe Van Aert and Lemon, Thomas and Kwiatkowski, while Pools, Jules Jensen and Matthews, Hull and Neylands, Schoens and Bernard, Victor Kampenaerts, Pacher, Madouas, Menchi, Zimmerman, Carapaz, Quinn and Healy, Aaron Brew, Lascano, Sobrero, Healy, Frank van den Broek, Tobias Johannesson, Jagat, Bergerdo, Verscher, and Steph Kras. So for GC, Steph Kras trying to gain some free time, and same with Menkes. And then we've got the quickest man in the group is clearly Van Aert. Then we've got some sort of Matthews is quick as well. Sean Quinn is quick. And then we've got climbers like Hindley and Carapaz. Yep. And then we've got sort of all-rounders. So a really it's the mixed bag we expected, Benji.
Exactly. And when this breakaway formed, we immediately realized, okay, the gap to the peloton is growing quickly. UAE is fine with this. They're blocking the road initially. And the gap grows not to 2 minutes, not to 3 minutes. We're talking about 10, 12 minutes. So, this breakaway is going to fight for the victory, but there's still that phase of like 30, 40 kilometers where the group is working together towards the more enticing hills that we have on the parcours. Because let's say that on the first climb, there was still action when it comes to the breakaway being formed. And it's really in the Col de Mans, Côte de Saint-Apollinaire, and Côte de Demoiselle Coiffée. So those three last climbs between roughly 100k to go and 35k to go, those are the ones where you might see that fuga de la fuga action, a breakaway trying to get away from the breakaway, because let's be honest about it, if Kampenaerts goes to the line with this group, he's going to get beaten in a sprint, so he knows he needs to get ahead of that. if Hindley goes to the finish line, he knows climbing might be the best area for him to get a difference. So every single rider has a bit of a different view of how they need to do it. And then you look at, there's also some Bernards in the world. Like Bernard is probably not going to make the front split on the climb. So maybe he needs to anticipate in between the climbs a little bit more. So there's like different aspects to each rider in here. So it wouldn't just be a physical challenge against each other, but also a tactical one of who can make the right split. But I also felt like, let's say we get to the last 60 kilometers now. We're on the Côte de Saint-Apollinaire, the first of the last 2 proper climbs, and we get instant attacks. Healy, Sobrero, and Nylands go. Then later we got Thomas closing that. Van den Broek goes on a little flyer. Riders go left and right. But because riders keep going, it also becomes not just a tactical fight, but also an attritional one of who can survive, who can maybe hide a little better, but not hide too much because you still want to make the split. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and having teammates makes a huge difference, so you don't always have to be responding or hoping to get in every move. Like when Hindley loses Sobrero, he's on his own, he's at risk. Yeah. Johannesson, he has to either try and make a selection himself by attacking or he's going to miss it. So teammates just made a really, really big difference. And teams like Israel and EF indeed had numbers. What I thought would happen, Benji, was basically that EF would completely light up the 2 climbs because they're not going to go for Quinn in a sprint.
Yeah.
And so Carapaz and Healy, they just absolutely go all out. I didn't really know what anyone else would do, frankly. I think Jayco, when they had Jules Jensen there, were happy for it to be a sprint, but then he got dropped. So it was kind of a mess, and Van Aert is also the big favourite in the group, so no one wants to be with him. That's like the overall philosophy of the group think, is that you got to get away from him. And then your chances of winning go up if you get with 3 or 4 guys with mutual interest, mutual ability.
And that's where I feel like Bart Lemon did a hell of a job today, because both on Saint-Apollinaire and the climb afterwards, Demoiselle Coiffée, we see Lemon play a vital role in trying to control whatever attacks happen. And that's not by like attacking or something, but that's by doing 2 things. Let's say rider 1, there's an attack by Lascano and Bernard at a certain point. What does Lemon do? He basically bridges to their wheel and then sits on. So those 2 riders, they're not going to be happy about Lemon just sitting on their wheel and not doing anything. So eventually they just drop back to the group in which Wout van Aert is sitting, because other riders are trying to bridge towards the group in which Lemon is just sitting on. So it's like neutralizing by jumping into a breakaway ahead is what Lemon was doing most of the time. And in other moments, he was kind of facing the Wout van Aert group back to a breakaway up the road. So I think that's good stuff. At that point, Bart Lemon is doing a great job. But if that keeps going, Lemon can't keep going forever.
No, it's impossible. Like Saint-Apollinaire, so the second last climb crest 60 k's from the finish. Okay.
Yeah.
You can close moves because like no one seriously thought they were going to Fuga de la Fuga, 60 k's to go. The last climb, Lemon's already been closing attack. He looks good, but still he's not been able to. It almost, Benji, would have been easier if Lemon just relayed with 3 or 4 guys and then the other group behind paces. But attack. He has to get tired eventually. And even, let's say, even he does close everything on the 2 climbs, he is not going to be able to bring Wout van Aert to a sprint. If 40 k's flat, false side uphill. Like Total have Bergado, Vercher, there's Zimmerman. There's a whole load of teams with rouleurs with 0 sprint who are strong.
Yeah.
So Van Aert goes to the front at the end of the last climb, doesn't attack, doesn't really set a pace, and Kwiatkowski just launches it from behind him and gets a gap into this. Not into the descent, actually. There's a rolling plateau, and the group was still big. Like Matthews was hanging on, so that was the moment where Lemon's closed everything. Van Aert's had not an armchair ride, but he's not had to close much himself. Hindley's done way more work. Johannessen's done way more. There's a lot of guys who are trying to do it themselves. He has to attack and try and create a selection, because we saw in Kerner Russell Kerner, Lascano and Wellens worked with him for 2 hours to go to a sprint they couldn't win. Like, Lemon controlling a group of 30 for the last hours is impossible. But Kwiatkowski attacks, and it's perfect timing, because it's also a technical fast descent where a teammate chasing doesn't really give you a disadvantage. It's not a pedaling descent too much, and he's got to hope that some other daredevils join across or bridge to him.
Exactly, and when that move does happen, it's not the likes of Wout van Aert, it's not the likes of Lemon. Visma's kind of caught behind in that situation, and Kwiatkowski goes into that descent of Demoiselle Coiffé alone, and we see in the background a few riders coming up in the descent. I see Kampenaerts, I think it's Verchet. I wasn't sure about the Total Energy rider initially, but it ended up being Verchet. Those two riders eventually come back to Kwiatkowski. In the distance, we see that Johannessen was also actually closing on to Kwiatkowski and Verchet, but in a hairpin bend, he slides out completely. Lemon, I think, was positioned behind Johannessen from what I could see. So maybe that situation, the crash of Johannessen, also impacted whether the riders that were just behind him in that crash could catch up in that descent to the likes of Kampenaerts and Verchet, who eventually break it back to Kwiatkowski. So situation on the road after the descent of Demoiselle Coiffé. It's shocking that I've gone through that name without any problems. Kwiatkowski, Kampenaerts, and Verchet up the road. 30 seconds on. A second group: Lemon, Tom Squeens, Jai Hindley, Chris Nylands, and Oiler Lascano. And then a larger group, is on roughly a minute with Van Aert, Matthews, Thomas, whatever, all the guys. Aramburu is also an important one. I'm looking just at which riders in group 3 have teammates in the Lemon group. So Lemon is in group 2, while Wout van Aert is in group 3. Lascano is in group 2, while Aramburu and Mühlberger are in group 3. So those are two things I'm looking at. But obviously, with Johannessen crashing, he might have made that second group. He probably would have made that second group, but eventually he lands in that third group due to his crash. So a bit unfortunate to see that when it comes to Johannessen. He was in front of the second group. Yeah, exactly.
He nearly crashed. They had to slow down, avoiding his crash.
Exactly. So that might be one of the reasons why that group didn't make it to that first group in the first place. Who knows with Johannessen's crash. But that being said, that's the situation we have. Quick side note, Verchet actually crashed today as well. Not at any point in this moment of the race, but in the neutral zone at the start of the race. I think he crashed into a barrier, a pedestrian barrier somewhere. I don't know how it happened, but hey, that's a detail. He looks a bit scuffed, but he's in the front group together with Kwiatkowski and Kampenaerts, so he's in the right place. But now there's a bit of a situation in which I would have expected Visma to start doing things differently. Because, yes, I think that Wout van Aert probably made a mistake on the last climb by not attacking himself, by just going to the front and being countered by Kwiatkowski. But I think their other mistake comes in this phase now, in the last, 20 kilometers of the race, because the Bart Lemon group, Squeens, Hindley, Nylands, Lascano, that second group on the road, starts losing time towards Kwiatkowski, Kampenaerts, and Verchet. And in the meanwhile, the Van Aert Matthews group is also not gaining time on the first group. So at some point, you have to make a decision to change the strategy here. Because right now, you're storming towards a situation where Bart Lemon will be sprinting for P4 and Van Aert will be sprinting for P9 in this race. And with about 18, 19, 20 kilometers to go, in my opinion, Bart Lemon should have been pulled back. Yes, he had fantastic work throughout the entire stage. And yes, maybe they should have done a different strategy throughout the stage itself. But in this situation, Lemon should have been pulled back to Group 3 to just hammer it. And maybe Lascano as well, to be honest, because if this group doesn't come back with Lascano, their best chance is pulling Lascano back, hard pacing Group 3 as well, and maybe trying a bit of a sprint with Aramburu. He's not an amazing sprinter, we've gone through it, but it's the best they can get, I think.
Yeah, this was horrendous Group 2, and Group 3 syndrome. We had Group 2 and Group 3 syndrome, because Group 2, Lemon stops pulling, but doesn't wait for Van Aert. So Group 2 is stuffed. By definition, already they've gone out to 40 seconds. Kwiatkowski and Kampenaerts are pulling really strong. And so it's gone out to 40 seconds. He stops pulling. They're never making it back to the front, ever. They're never making it back. That group. Dysfunctional already. Lascano, he doesn't pull.
Yep.
There was also one of Neylands or Skirns wasn't fully contributing. Hindley tried his best. So you're right. Like that, you have to, if he's not going to pull, you may as well drop him back because Decathlon pull, Van Aert attacks on a false flat downhill, whole group in his wheel, stops, gets to within 12 seconds of Lemon's group, the whole group stops again. It's just two chasse patates going nowhere. It's like, you may as well drop Lemon back and just pull all out for like 3-4 minutes and then see if Van Aert can bridge or something. Like, because Lemon's, first of all, not going to win from that group. And secondly, like, Van Aert, no one's going to work in group 3 all out with Van Aert there. Like, why would you? He's stupid. And the same goes for Movistar, Benji. Like, it's the representation fallacy. We have Lascano ahead. It's like, okay, what's that doing for you? Nothing. Like, so
losing time to the potential winners of the race, which is Verchet, Kwiatkowski, and Kampenaerts,
who are just rolling through. Like and they're strong guys. Like Kwiatkowski, especially when I saw Kampenaerts get across Benji, I was like, it's over. Who was in the break? That one ahead of the sprinters on a almost pure sprint stage last year. Abrahamsen,
Kampenaerts, Asgreen, and Abrahamsen.
3 guys. Maybe it was the 4th who dropped. Like, Kampenaerts, you're not going to bring him back in this terrain, especially if you got, this and that. So, it was finished.
But before we get to the actual exit of the stage,
Luke says Encorn was in.
Okay, Encorn, you're right.
That was when Philipsen tried to bully them, and Encorn bridged across on that.
I think so, yes. I think that was that stage. But regardless of that, we've spoken about who's fighting for the stage. It looks like it's probably going to be Kwiatkowski, Kampenaerts, and Verchet right now. But in the peloton behind, we get a shot of not UAE pacing, but Israel pacing. And I was confused at first. And then you pointed me towards the GC rankings because Steph Gras from the breakaway, who was on 32 minutes in the breakaway on 14th, had gained so much time, 15 minutes, that he was virtually in 8th in GC, passing Derek G. And that's why Israel was starting to pace 15 minutes back. That is peak week 3 Tour de France action, in my opinion.
It's what you love to see. It's what you love to see. Like, you're like, why is Jake Stewart pacing the peloton? It's like, oh, I understand now. It's true. And look, Steph Gras, we started recording this before all the peloton has finished. But yeah, Steph Gras took a lot of time today. How many spots did he move up?
Probably 8th or 9th in GC.
Dude, Visma let Jorgensen lose 2 spots on GC. Why didn't they pace? Anyway, back to the breakaway. Frankly, you're gonna look at the time gaps in the end, and you're gonna say they could have caught them.
Yeah,
I don't believe they ever could. Not in the last 10 to 12 Ks. It was already over because you see that gap. You say, but it was only 20 or 30 seconds. No, it was only 20 or 30 seconds because they had 40 and 60 seconds, and so they knew they had buffer to play with to not pull all out, to save a bit. Like you do when you're going for the break win, like Kampenaerts, Verchet, and Kwiatkowski are doing. You do the bare minimum to stay ahead to fight for the win. You don't try and win by the biggest gap possible, obviously. So no, in the end, I don't even think. I honestly, Benji, after the descent, I don't think they ever could have been caught. Even if everybody did everything good behind. Kampenaerts, Kwiatkowski, Verchet, pulling all out. That. Okay, maybe in theory, if like Mühlberger and Lascano and Lemon perfectly cooperate. But this never happens. This never happens. So they had a very good chance of winning the whole time, and they're going to fight it out in the sprint. And indeed, that's what looks like happening. There's laying off a bit as they get to a K to go. They know they've got 20 seconds, 25 seconds to play with. Verchet doesn't trust his sprint, Benji. He doesn't trust his sprint.
Ooh, it's interesting. He goes for it, but it was kind of like a weird situation because we go under the 1K banner and Kwiatkowski goes off the front and sees that Kampenaerts is forcing Kwiatkowski to the wheel of Verchet. And when Kwiatkowski is looking backwards and Kampenaerts is telling Kwiatkowski that he's not going to take over anymore, basically, that's when Verchet has a bit of a gap, and I don't know whether it's because he saw that he had a little bit of a gap, or whether he really wanted to go at that point, because it's a weird place to attack from otherwise. From first position in a relay. So I think it was because those other two are kind of bickering about Campenaerts not relaying anymore that he saw that opportunity, and he goes off the front with like, what is it, 800, 900 meters to go? And then it's the question of who's gonna blink first. And it wasn't Campenaerts.
Well, Kwiatkowski kind of played himself here, because like, if you're going to play a game of chicken, you got to see it all the way through.
Yeah.
The worst thing you can do, I can't remember the recent example of this, is like, refuse to take a guy's wheel because you're trying to be like, it's not my problem, I'm not going to close him down. And then within 3 seconds, you've made it a problem for yourself, and you do close it down. You may as well at that point just lose, because you're going to lose now. And that's what happens is... And I think it's a good attack from Verchere, because there's a good chance Kwiatkowski doesn't do what he does.
Yep.
Because he's won a Tour de France stage before. Maybe he thinks Campenaerts is more desperate than him to win, and then neither of them chase, and Verchere goes away. But actually, Kwiatkowski lets the wheel go, and then after Campenaerts calls his bluff, he's like, fuck, I got to go back, and then he slowly closes the wheel to Verchere. Verchere actually stops his action pretty quickly.
Yeah.
You sometimes see guys, they go for it, and then the guy closes them, and then they keep going a bit too long. He immediately stops it and actually recharges for his sprint.
Yeah, it's like he plugged himself in, got his battery back, and he is still in first position, but because he's kind of stopping on the left side of the road, the others kind of come next to him, and then I'm thinking, okay, who's going to start this sprint in first position? And it looked like that was going to become Kwiatkowski, which he already made it's hard to say mistake, but he blinked first when Verchere was up the road, and now he's going to have to sprint from first position as well. Kwiatkowski put himself in the worst possible position for the sprint, right?
He did, because like he really didn't keep the pace very high through the chicanes, and so the pace wasn't high at all. Verchere kind of accelerates a little bit, but doesn't, like, Verchere perfectly brings Campenaerts into this sprint, because he accelerates without starting his sprint yet, and then basically Kwiatkowski never opens it up. It straightens up, and Campenaerts in the big gear, he's already going twice as fast as Kwiatkowski when Kwiatkowski first sees him sprinting, gets the jump on him, and it's absolutely all over. Once he's up to speed, Campenaerts, he's so aero anyway, and he's got a good sprint in the first place. He beat Rasmus Tiller in a sprint, a 2-up sprint last year, who's like a professional lead-out man. So he, with that run, with that timing, without having to close Verchere, Campenaerts wins easily. In fact, Verchere still comes second. He kind of gets the jump on Kwiatkowski, who comes third. And then the group behind comes in with Schoens, Lascano, Lemon, Neylands, and Hindley all on 22 seconds. And then another 15 seconds back is Group 3 with Van Aert, Matthews, Godon, and Pacher. So, huge win for Lotto Destiny, Benji. It's their last chance. Yeah, it's their last chance to win, unless DeLee wins tomorrow. And they probably hope to win on Stage 8. Campenaerts showed how good he was on Stage 7, where he came 5th in the TT behind, he was the first non-GC guy out of the Big Four.
Yeah.
And now he wins this stage, which is like the most hotly contested breakaway stage in the race. They had 45-man groups, so huge win for them. So, not going to say saves their tour, because I actually think DeLee's been pretty good, but they wanted to win a stage.
It does save their tour, because Van Gils on one end was also expected to potentially fight for a stage win. That didn't work out. He then had to exit the Tour de France in week 3, I think because of COVID. DeLee was close a few times, but I think on Stage 8, for example, that's a sprint that DeLee should have won, but experience was missing in terms of the amount of sprints he's done in his life, and just he chose the wrong line a few times in the sprints, and that reduces his chances for the victory. So they came here to win a stage, and they have that stage now with Victor Campenaerts, which probably was their third expected rider to potentially, their third likely expected rider to potentially take a stage win. So for Campenaerts to do this, but not only that, for that time trial as well, but also for the domestique work he did for Maxime Van Gils and for the lead during the weeks, he was a very good rider in this Tour de France. And there were some rumors in the media about a Visma Leasebike transfer weeks ago, a month ago or something. And I do see that as the way he performed in this Tour de France. I see him as a very valuable rider for kind of like a medium mountain domestique or an early mountain domestique, or like it's hard to say whether he can replace a peak van Baarle, but like maybe the role before that. I don't know. It's I'm leaning towards that area when it comes to that transfer, if that happens. But hey, we'll see if that occurs or not. But very nice to see Kampenaerts win. Very nice to see a Belgian man win, of course. As a Belgian, I can't complain either. But I don't know. It's like, I won't be popular for saying this, but these are not my favorite stages to watch.
Really?
Yeah.
I liked
I'm
it.
sorry.
I liked having. It's just something different. This is
my issue.
It's the most unique stage of the tour so far.
My issue with these stages is that it kind of feels like a crosswind stage with limited wind, because I like knowing when to watch during a stage. And during this stage, I feel like I kind of need to watch the majority of the stage, because I don't know when the Fuga de la Fuga will happen, when the breakaway from the breakaway will happen. Yes, it's likely to be on the last two climbs, but we've seen in the past that suddenly a random rider shows up on the third last climb, like 60k into the race, rides off, and then it's that rider that suddenly has the best opportunity to win. Like, I don't know. I've never been super invested in a solely breakaway victory stage like the Bettiol one, for example, was it the Giro against Cavagna at some point?
Yeah, those ones fade into my memory. Did Colbrelli win one in his magical run?
I don't know, man. I
remember Conrad. That was like the birth of Group 2 syndrome. That was horrific. That was really
against
bad.
Gaudu.
Yeah.
Painful.
That one was a bit painful, actually.
These are just not memorable stages for me.
I like them because you've got 17 teams, maybe 16 teams that get in the break, and all of them got a puncher's chance of taking a stage win. Like, I don't need to see Vingegaard, Pogačar win every mountain stage. I don't need to see Philipsen win every sprint. Like, it's good to see different teams and different riders with different skill sets mixing it up, getting involved. Verscher, who is Matteo Verscher? No offense, but like, it's good to see him get in the move, make the right selection. Total get numbers in. It's their only chance to really play and go for a stage apart from the gravel, and they do everything right. And they nearly won. They came second. So I think I like them. Not obviously every day, like in the Giro when you got 6 of these. Yeah, unwatchable, of course, and then I simply do not watch. But as a mixture to break up the sprints, I wish we'd had one more of these last week to break up the sprints.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
We've had a fair few sprints, I think.
Yeah, I think so as well. 6 pure flat sprints, if I recall.
Yeah.
3 for Biniam, 3 for Philipsen.
Yeah.
Wasn't even a pure flat one.
And
the
Cavendish.
One for Biniam, but
Cavendish.
Yeah. So 6.5.
At least 7.
Pure flat sprints.
So yeah, I like it. Anything else from this stage, Benji?
Is it shocking to you that, if I recall correctly, Decathlon and Cofidis are the French teams in this race without a stage win, while actually Groupama neither, right? And in the meanwhile, it's Arkea and Total that have the stage win. How weird is that feeling?
Yeah. And Cofidis didn't really make the break today, did they?
Yeah.
They made it with Guillaume Martin. Like, this is the day Coquard or Zangler needed to be in the breakaway. Had to be in the breakaway. It's their best chance to win. And but then it's like some teams' ecstasy is another's disappointment. That's cycling, that's top sport. One man's winner is another man's loser. But yeah, I like these stages. I'm going to go on record. I think they're good. I liked the O'Connor, Morich, Asgreen stage that Morich won. This is the Morich stage last year. Yep. I like that. It plays out the same way. And remember, like the Van Aert, what you saw with Van Aert today, Philippe Gilbert won 1 Tour de France stage, and he was the best, maybe all-round classics rider over a 5-year period, if you include Ardennes. Van der Poel's won 1 Tour de France stage. If you're actually the big favorite, you have to play your cards absolutely perfectly in these groups of 40, because you have it's not like classics where in the classics, Visma will have 6 guys in 40. And then Alpecin will have 6 in 40, and you got a better representation to manage things. Here you got 2 in 40.
Do you feel like there's a truth?
Everyone targets them.
You feel like there's a truth to the storyline that we saw from Mathieu van der Poel and Adrie van der Poel in the last couple of days about there not really being those specific Van der Poel stages in Grand Tours?
That's
I'm not
sure
true
at all.
I disagree,
what's he talking about?
Today, the gravel stage, those stages exist, and
Stage 1.
I
came
think
third in
maybe,
Liège. He came third in Liège.
It should be on his level, but
it was a group of 50.
The reason they're not much Van der Poel stages is because he's not good enough this Tour de France.
It's because his threshold is 30 watts less than in the classics. That's why they're not Van der Poel stages.
So I think that's kind of a bullshit storyline. But I will say, I feel like there were different puncher stages back in the day. Kind of the stage that were completely flat, but then ended in like
I agree.
Not a stage 8 kind of sprint, but a bit harder than that. But then again, the problem is these days that's a GC stage, no? Because then you've got Pogacar mixing it up.
Pogacar, Roglic, but then it's a good stage for Vauquelin. I mean, San Luca is a little bit too hard, but yeah, like Van der Poel also won a Mur de Bretagne attacking on the first climb.
Yeah,
attacking, took bonus seconds, waited, destroyed everyone on the second climb, and so like, he's just not in the same shape as 21. But also, I also, the broader point is like, also when say Van der Poel, like he was in that break, the equivalent break last year with Philipsen.
Yeah.
Asgreen and Moritz on the last climb were like, we have zero interest in going anywhere further with Mathieu van der Poel and Jasper Philipsen.
Yep.
And absolutely launched and collaborated. So it's just interesting to see the classics guys then in the Tour and how success translates in different race dynamics. But yeah, that was stage 18. Stage...
Oh, la, la, la. One more thing. Well, first of all, Stef Kras doesn't move up to 8th. He moves up to 12th only, actually. So not even in the top 10. Washed. KOM jersey, that I don't care. Points jersey is one I wanted to talk about. 387 points for Binyam, 354 for Philipsen. That's locked as long as Binyam finishes.
Yeah, Binny, I mean, he's going to the medical car a few times, but he's fine. He's just got to make the time limit the next few days. And I don't... Alpecin are not even trying anymore. And where's the... Yeah, they can't... Mathematically, I'm calling it as over.
Yeah,
it's over.
Same.
So it's done. Because the stage 20 intermediate is after a category 1 and a category 2. So good luck, Philipsen.
Sudani as well, right? Before it?
Yeah, just a 45-minute, no longer, a 50-minute climb before. So, and it's also halfway up a climb. So yeah, it's done. It's over. Benny just got to finish the race. But tomorrow's stage from Embrun to Isola 2000. This is 145 kilometers long, over 4,500 meters of climbing jam-packed into those 145 Ks. Very, very short start, 21 Ks of rolling hills before they get into, and it is not flat before the first climb, it just looks that way because the other climbs are so big. Then they do the Col de Var, 19 Ks, 5.5%. It's a bit fake newsy. It's in 2 parts. The first 8 Ks are at, let's say, 7%, and actually maybe even more. There's like 4 Ks that are 8.5%. Then there's 3 Ks flat, and then the last 7 Ks, if I can count, 7, 8 Ks are around 6%. So it really is 2 climbs put together with a bit of a rest period. Short descent and then a false flat valley downhill. Then the Chim de la Bonnette, 23.1 Ks, 6.8%. Similarly, if you... it's basically... if you shave off some of the flat bits at the end, this also averages over 7% almost the whole way. So it also goes to 2,800 meters, which adds, a few percentage points to how the gradients feel. Then a long descent of 25 Ks or more to Saint-Étienne, then a valley of another 15, 16 Ks to Isola, and then they do Isola 2000, which, as the name suggests, goes over 2,000 meters from 16 Ks, 7.1%. Really? Yeah, I know. Funny how that works. The first 8 Ks are where it's steepest. We've got multiple kilometers over 8%, a couple over 9.5%. and then it really levels off, and it's actually 5, 6s almost the whole way to the finish from the last 7Ks. So interesting stage, very, very difficult. Perfect for a raid. Well, maybe not, but yeah, it's a nice stage. I like it.
I like it as well. It's also, I am quite intrigued on how you can use it from each team's perspective, because UAE, I think the storyline is simple. You don't want Visma in the breakaway. That's number one. And if Visma is in the breakaway, you might as well try and send your own riders to try and neutralize those satellite riders also in the breakaway. Then behind that, Pogacar just plays defensively, in my opinion, and if the stage win opportunity arises, take it. Unless they are very confident and try to win the stage. At this point, it's their right to do that based on what they've shown so far. It's a little more risky, but is it that big of a risk if we saw the last week and a half? It doesn't look like that necessarily, but anything can happen. From Visma's perspective, you've got two options. Either you still try to beat Pogacar, or you don't try to beat Pogacar and defend your second position. I feel like from before 2 days ago, I would have said they 100% attack the coming two stages, or one of the two stages at least, to try and still beat Pogacar, because Vingegaard didn't really have a danger from Remco yet. But then 2 days ago, Vingegaard gets dropped by Remco, and you've got a bit of a thing in your back of your head of like, yes, Remco has beaten Vingegaard once in this Grand Tour. So I still lean towards Visma will try something in the next 2 days. Don't know if it's tomorrow, don't know if it's the day after. Probably this stage, I would say. And I don't know if they'll try the same thing as on the previous mountain stage, because they rode the entire day as hard as possible, as many kilojoules as possible, and Pogacar destroyed Vingegaard. So whether that same strategy is the one they'll go for, whether they're trying to go for, I don't know, put someone in the breakaway, then try and have the gap grow out towards Chim de la Bonnette, and on Chim de la Bonnette, nuclear lead out for Vingegaard, try and launch there towards a satellite rider or something on that climb. Will the gap be large enough for that rider in the breakaway to be able to be ahead after La Bonnette? There's so many questions there. When it comes to Quickstep, I think you start off defensively and you switch your plan according to Visma. If Visma doesn't do anything tomorrow when it comes to pacing, and there's barely any pace, then you might as well start and make the race a little bit harder with your own domestiques as Quickstep, in a possibility of Remco trying to gain time on Vingegaard, because you can afford the risk. If you look at GC before the stage, which the gaps are gigantic. Pogacar has 3 minutes 11 on Vingegaard, Evenepoel on 5:09, so within 2 minutes of Vingegaard, but Remco has 8 minutes on Joao Almeida, so we can afford a bit of a risk to try and attack Vingegaard. So if there's limited action from Visma, I think Remco should go for that. But I still expect the action from Visma.
Shouldn't Landa, is this why you keep him in GC? Just to jump?
I don't know, because like, it's a bit far, huh?
Yeah.
I think it's too far, my friend. I think the gap to the breakaway probably won't reach 10 minutes.
I think we're going to see a satellite battle tomorrow of Jan Hirt once again is going to try to get in the breakaway, because to potentially be a satellite rider, Kelderman or Van Aert trying to get in the breakaway. I think we'll see some of that. The breakaway battle, I think, will be on the first half of Col de Var, because I just don't trust everybody to get it sorted and get a group within the first 20Ks. Maybe I'm wrong, but...
maybe Rouleur breakaway. But then again, there's a small hill in there. And
also, like, it has to form in the first 10Ks, because then straight after that middle hill, the sprint, Alpecin into Marseille all of a sudden start going the front to control for the intermediate sprint, which is at 20Ks to go.
Will they still do that? Will Alpecin still do that?
They'll still go to the front. The pace will speed up. Into Marseille will go to the front to be in position in case, and then by virtue of that, the speed is higher. So that's another thing to watch out for. I think, looking at Wellens today, Soler the other day, Yates, I don't think UAE are going to go for the stage unless it's handed to them on a platter. I don't think they're just going to pace all out. because kind of they got stage wins. Almeida in fourth will be happy with that. Yates is going to just want to hold on to his P10, and he's kind of a bit crooked, looks like. Wellens just had to work all day. I don't see them controlling for the 4 hours.
Me neither.
So I feel like this is the one where a mountain breakaway has a good chance.
Yeah, but it depends on whether Visma tries to light it up again or not.
Yeah. But there's some valleys, like there's between Var and the start of Bonnet is 22 Ks, and then really like the end of that Bonnet descent, like the GC group on the Bonnet descent is going to crawl. And then you got another 20k valley where the break can get a good amount of time. Who could get in the break that can climb?
A lot of riders can do that.
Felix Gull is on 20 minutes on GC.
Yeah.
Where actually the GC is really close between like, but then Rodriguez won't like that. I think this is going to be, I think we're going to see 4th through 11th in the break on GC.
4th to 11th.
I think some of them are going to try jump. It's going to be like the low stage. Lows, there was Yates, Bilbao, Goal in the break.
Yeah.
And then
I've got 8th to 13th.
No, because then if Ciccone goes in, Rodriguez has to go in. It's a domino effect.
The gap is 4 minutes 20 though.
True, but he's been kind of there or thereabouts. And then if Rodriguez goes in, Almeida will... True, maybe you're right that's the cutoff, is that Ciccone can go in, Yates won't care enough. And but yeah, 8th through 12th, they're going to be in the break.
Yeah.
I am going to go with who was good on Super Devil in the break.
For me, it's Simon Yates or Carapaz. Or Hindley.
I'm going to go with El Jaguar. I think Carapaz wins, yeah, because if you look at the Watts JV posted that Carapaz did as GC contender Watts on the climb before Super Devil. So if they get him in, he is a GC contender normally.
Well, it's been a while, to be honest.
You know, in this Tour de France, he was finished the San Lucas stage with Remco, Jonas, and Pog.
Yep.
Feels like a lifetime.
Collapsed.
Feels like a lifetime ago.
I don't know who to go for, because I kind of wanted to go for Carapaz as well, because he stomped Yates the other
I'll go
day.
with Enrique Mas. I'll go then. You can take him.
No, I don't want to. I don't want to pick him. I don't want him anymore.
If
you give him to me, I don't want him. I'm going for Jai Hindley so Bora can get something out of this Grand Tour.
Yeah. So I want Movistar with Enrique Mas. You want Jai Hindley so Bora get a stage.
No, I want the GC. I want a GC fight for the victory on Italo 2000. That's what I want. But
I want a GC fight, but I don't want to see. I'd rather see someone else win.
Would it be interesting? Would it be surprising if you see? I don't think they have the team left for it, but if like Quickstep starts controlling for a potential stage win, not going to happen because Pogacar just launches away. But
for the stage win, I'd sooner put Landa in the breakaway.
Yeah, I agree.
With here, I would say he has a better chance because like, are UAE really going to pace all out Benji for Joao Almeida's 4th?
But what happens if Landa goes in the break and Almeida follows? What happens from that point onwards?
That's a good situation for UAE, no? But then Quickstep are worried. Yeah, but it's not going to. How much time is it really going to take? I always think teams overreact to these things. Like, first of all, so Almeida is, as you say, 8 minutes behind Remco. After the TT is going to be what, 9.5?
Yep.
So he's 9.5 minutes behind Remco, and we got another GC stage on Saturday. If Landa goes with him, like, he's not going to win by 12 minutes. Just once it gets to 3 or 4 minutes, just put someone in the group behind to set a bit of a pace.
I'll switch it up. I'm saying Pogacar.
You're going to switch it up and pick Tadej Pogacar. Wow.
Yeah. I feel like we're all going with favorites every single day. I feel like I need to go for someone completely out there that no one will pick for this stage. So I think Tadej Pogacar is really that rider that hasn't really broken out this race, so I think that's a good selection for tomorrow.
Fair enough. Hard to go past. You might be the stage favorite, but we'll see. All right, big weekend coming up. We'll see if the GC really is over and how the teams fare, because we got 2 big mountain stages. It's the first of 2, and then obviously the TT, which is not mountainous, but I would say very, very hilly on Sunday. So the first of 3 extremely difficult stages. I hope you enjoyed the recap of Victor Campenaerts' emotional W, and we'll see you with a recap of the Isla Showdown tomorrow. Until then, ciao.